right, well, thank you. Okay. 1 year down, you're still happy to see me. I'm glad. All right. Well, as we gather here tonight, I can sum up the condition of our city in a phrase we haven't been able to use for years. Detroit is now on the road to recovery. I want to thank the people of this neighborhood, the Old Redford community, for hosting us this evening. Right? This community is fighting back like so many others. It started with entrepreneurs, the Thomas family that started Sweet Potato Sensations, Alicia George, right? And the Motor City Java House. They saw opportunity when nobody else did, and now we've got 190,000 square foot Myers bringing 500 jobs to this community. We're on our way back. I want to talk about the progress and the challenges, but before that I want to do something that probably breaks protocol with these kinds of speeches, but it's a different kind of leadership here. My colleagues on the Detroit City Council and I argue quite vigorously at times, but we do it behind closed doors, and we come to an agreement that works for the entire city, and that the progress we're making is not because of the mayor. It's because of the elected officials together. And I want to start by introducing my partner. And the first one is the Council President, Brenda Jones, who's brought stability, leadership, and for the last 8 years has worked to open the skilled trades, the people of color. Council President Pro Tem George Cushingberry, strong voice for bringing back the neighborhoods in the 2nd District. Councilman James Tate, who's been a strong community leader in developing new uses for property in Northwest Detroit. Councilman Scott Benson, who's always making sure that Detroit's redevelopment includes affordable housing. Councilman Andre Spivey, who led the passage of the gas station surveillance ordinance that creates safer retail. Councilmember Mary Sheffield, who launched the Occupy the Neighborhood movement to bring peace to dangerous neighborhoods and is now leading the Homelessness Task Force. Councilmember Raquel Castaneda-Lopez, who has led the effort to make immigrants from all countries welcome here in Detroit, and she's responsible for Detroit becoming a national leader in joining the Welcoming Cities Initiative. And Councilmember Gabe Leland, who's working closely with the Wayne County Treasurer to help the members of his district avoid tax foreclosures and remain in their homes. And City Clerk Janice Winfrey, who does an outstanding job running the City Clerk's office. Thank you to all of my partners. As I stood here a year ago, I said to you, I only want to be judged on one standard. Is the population of the city of Detroit going up, or is it going down? I think that is the one true gauge of a mayor's success. And so that's what I want to talk about tonight, and we're going to start the conversation tonight exactly where we left it off a year ago, in the neighborhoods, because that's where it all starts. And for decades, this city has relied on one strategy for fighting blight. We all know what it was. It was demolition. You just keep knocking those houses down and the neighborhoods are going to come back, and we did it year after year. And when I came in, there was a report from the emergency manager that said 80,000 houses in Detroit had to be demolished. And I said to you a year ago, I didn't believe it. Okay? There are beautiful houses in this city, solid brick homes with architecture that can be saved, that we can move families back into. We don't have to knock everything down. And I outlined a plan that said we could go into the neighborhoods and we could sue the owners of abandoned houses, take entire neighborhoods at once. And when we sue them, say to these owners, you have two choices. You can sign a court order to get this house occupied and fixed up for the next 6 months, or deed it to us, and we'll sell it on the internet like eBay. And I suggested there might be something like a land bank that could get this done. Last February, that was an idea. How have we done? 12 months later, we have filed 1,200 lawsuits against owners of vacant property in this town. In 350 cases, they signed a consent agreement. They're fixing up the house themselves without us having to do anything. 350 houses being fixed up. In another 250 cases, the court awarded the property to us in the land bank, and in these 1,200 cases, we have not lost a single one. We are making progress. People didn't think we could sell these houses, but we're auctioning 2 a day on the website we call buildingdetroit.org. And we've had 168 houses that have not only sold, they have closed, and people are fixing them up and moving in. 168 families in houses that people had given up on just in the last 6 months. So what does this mean for an individual community? We started in the Marygrove neighborhood, a beautiful neighborhood at one time of 700 houses in which 120 houses were vacant and scheduled for demolition. We went in and we sued the owners of all 120 houses. And an amazing thing happened. People started fixing up their houses. The ones we took, we put online and people bought. We did have to knock about 20 or so down, and by the time we're done, we're going to end up knocking 30 houses down. A year ago, they told us 120 houses in Marygrove had to be demolished. Now it's going to be 30. 90 houses in one neighborhood are being saved, and we're moving families in. And we're replicating that in neighborhood after neighborhood across the city. What we're doing matters. One of the things that was helpful was last year, we did assessment reductions across the city, which were long overdue. 5, 10, 20% reductions to all the homes in the city. And an amazing thing happened. People paying their property taxes went up significantly. When the assessments were fair, people started paying. And when we look now at this year, we went and we cut the taxes again. But there was something different. This time when we went to cut them, we found that in 25 neighborhoods in the city, the property values actually went up from last year to this year. 25 neighborhoods where they're growing. They're the neighborhoods that you would hope for. It's Grandmont, and it's Rosedale, and it's West Village, and it's Bagley, and it's Green Acres. But they were 25 neighborhoods that weren't growing a year ago. What does it mean when property values are going up? It means more people want to move into that neighborhood than move out. And the question we have this year is, how do we go from 25 neighborhoods in 2014 to 50 or 75 neighborhoods in 2015 and keep bringing these neighborhoods back? And those are the things that I want to talk about. And so if we're going to get to the next group of neighborhoods, the very first thing we have to do, we have to stop the foreclosures, right? I mean, you look at what's happening, and there's numbers throwing out. The Wayne County Treasurer, Ray Wojtowicz, does a great job. 60,000 properties in foreclosure. Most of those are vacant lots or they're landlords, people who are taking rent from a tenant and not paying their taxes. But 18,000 of those homes are families who own that house. It is their home. It's probably their only investment. And we need to find a way to keep them in. And it's hard to see how we grow this community if 18,000 families lose their homes. And so the treasurer has done everything he could under the law. He offered repayment plans. But the law, this state said that if you offer somebody a repayment plan and back taxes, you have to charge them 18% interest a year. Wasn't doing anybody any good. And so late last year, I sat down with Governor Snyder over on West Outer Drive. I showed him that solid neighborhood, and I said, it's neighborhoods like these that are being decimated, good solid houses that people are being forced out of. And I said, we've got to stop it. He says, what do you want to do? I said, instead of 18% interest, why can't we have an agreement where the treasurer charges only 6% so we can make this work? And then for those who have just ridiculous amounts, if their back taxes are more than 25% of their house, let the treasurer write that down to 25%. And so there are people who think that Republicans and Democrats should fight and that I should argue with the governor and not work with them. But the governor listened to what I said, and he said, I'll support you on this. He says, but you don't have very much time. There's only a few weeks in the legislative session. With his support, we went to work. The treasurer and his deputy, Dave Szymanski, one of the great public servants of Michigan, they had to line up all the treasurers in the state. We had to get 83 treasurers to go along with it. And we got them on board, and I will be forever grateful to Ted Wabi, the treasurer of Macomb County, who stepped in and helped us at a critical time. We went to the legislature, and the Detroit delegation, the Republicans and the senators, the representatives and the senators from Detroit, were just phenomenal in being united. We got bipartisan sponsors, Phil Kavanaugh from Detroit and John Walsh, a Republican, to put the bill through with everybody's cooperation. We got great leadership help from people like Tim Grimel. And when it got down to the last couple days and it looked like we were going to run out of time, Arlen Meekoff, an outstate Republican who's now the Senate Majority Leader, made it a point to get our bill on the Senate floor right before Christmas and got it voted out. We got the bill through in bipartisan fashion. They thought it couldn't be done. So how's it working? The law has only been in effect about 3 weeks. I talked to the treasurer this morning. He says out of the 18,000 families in that situation in the last 3 weeks, 6,000 have already signed an agreement to be able to stay in their homes. You're seeing the TV ads. You can go to the treasurer's office. You can go down to Wayne County Community College at the downtown campus on Saturday. The treasurer will offer you 10% down, the balance over 4 to 5 years at 6% interest. If you've got a really high arrearage, he can do something about that. But a whole lot of people went to trouble to create this opportunity. It's an opportunity that has never existed before, and I urge the people in this community, if you're behind in your taxes, you do not need to lose your house. We want you to stay here. Please go to the treasurer's office and enter into a repayment agreement. So we're moving people into the houses that we can save. We're going to hopefully keep people in their own homes. But we do have to do something about the houses that can't be saved. And there's no question there's a lot of them. We've all seen them, the burned out houses. But it's an interesting thing. We found that if we demolish the rundown areas around the stronger neighborhoods, the values of the rest of the neighborhoods come back. The problem was that this city has never knocked down more than about 40 houses a week. And at 40 houses a week, it would have taken us about 10 years to get through this. And so we brought Dave Bernardo and a team from the Detroit Medical Center and said, we got to find a way to improve this. And he came in with a streamlined process and got from 40 a week to 50 a week, to 100 a week, to 200 a week. He got to 300, but he found out we couldn't find dirt fast enough to fill them. So we stayed, and we're going at 200 a week. And I didn't have any idea how impressive that was until now the city of Detroit is now considered the national expert. So I'm speaking at national blight conferences, and I did the presentation, and a city manager from an East Coast city came up to me afterwards, and he said, you know, in our city, we're demolishing 200 a year, and we complain all the time about how hard the logistics is. He says, I'm going to go back and tell them Detroit's doing 200 a week, and they're never going to believe it. But we've demonstrated that we can execute, and something I'm very proud of is the EPA has designated our environmental handling of this demolition as the highest standard in the country in the way we're handling it. We've knocked down 3,500 homes in the last 6 months, and we'll get another 4,000 from now through August. At that point, the federal funding is going to be at an end. And right now, we owe President Obama a debt of thanks for the funding that was there. And we also owe Rick Snyder a debt of gratitude for allocating the $100 million to the city of Detroit. And I want to thank Dennis Muchmore and Rich Baird, who are here on behalf of the governor, who have been our advocates. But we're going to run out of money in August. So last Tuesday, I was in Washington, D.C. with the Treasury Secretary Jack Lew and our senators, Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters, who are fighting very hard for us, and we're going to keep working every day. But we're not leaving any stone unturned. We just found another $7 million in fire escrow insurance that was left over with the assistance of Attorney General Bill Schuette, who found a legal way to free up that money so we can get more of these burned out houses down. Everybody in this state is working together. What about the folks who have owned houses in these neighborhoods, always paid their mortgages, always paid their taxes? What about them? One of the things that we have to face in this city is a question of inclusion. That as this city comes back, we've got to make sure everybody has an opportunity. And so we wanted to develop a program that would help people who are in their homes but need to fix it up. Maybe they need a new furnace, maybe they need a new roof, maybe they need a new plumbing. Yesterday, with the agreement of HUD and a group of foundations, we have a new $8 million loan pool that will be available at 0% interest to make loans to Detroiters to fix up their homes. This is a program that was backed by City Council in our application to the federal government. We've been working together for a while, and here's how it works. If you make, it's for middle income, lower to middle income, if you make $36,000 or less as an individual, or $52,000 or less as a family of four, you're going to be eligible for this loan. But we went back to HUD and said, we want to be able to do more than that. We want to do entire neighborhoods. And they came back yesterday and said, all right, if the neighborhood as a whole is making less than $36,000 for individuals or $52,000, you can make loans to every house in that neighborhood. So if you go to our website, the DetroitMI.gov website, we have up a new page today. It's called the Detroit Opportunities page. And on this page, we are putting every single program that is available to Detroiters, whether it's job training, whether it's loans, whether it's applications, et cetera. But if you go to the Detroit Opportunities page, and click on the link for the neighborhoods, you'll see how you can apply for this program. We'll be rolling out more details in the days to come. Okay, let's say we take care of the houses in these neighborhoods. What do we got left? A whole lot of vacant property, right? And so last year, we did a program, again with council support, where we started selling side lots. Instead of the long city bureaucratic process, we sent postcards out to a large number of people and said, you know that side lot next to your house? If you're current on your taxes, you want to buy it, bring us $100 and you can leave our office with a deed. All right? These side lot fairs have been very powerful. I've attended every one. And in the last 10 weeks, we've had 600 people buy the lot next to their house. We've sold more side lots in the last 10 weeks than we have in the last 10 years. I got this idea back when I was campaigning and I was doing all those house parties, and I did one over on 5 Points, far west side of Detroit, with Willie and Jacqueline Moore. And they had very deep lots, very unusual for the city, on the west edge. And on the side lot, because they didn't have many recreation opportunities, they created a little park. They put in a horseshoe pit. They put in a basketball court. They put in a volleyball court. It was the gathering place for the entire community. They had been trying to buy the lot from the city for 10 years, and the city wanted $5,000. Believe me, I was very happy to see the Moores walk out of the last side lot fair with their deed in hand and a smile on their faces. That's what we're trying to do in this community. We're going to have a long conversation in this community about how we use the vacant land, and we're going to bring in a world-class planner very soon, because we're going to have conversations, some that Councilman Tate has led, about where can we use livestock and rural type of applications, and how does that fit with traditional cities. We're going to have to look at, can we create huge areas to hold stormwater so when we have the rainstorms it doesn't flood basements like it did last August. And it's going to be a role for the mayor, for the planning division, for the council, for the planning commission, and for people like the LEAP group that's done a phenomenal job in their own planning, and Detroit Future Cities. But that's going to take a couple of years. It needs to have the input of everybody. So the question is, in the meantime, what do we do with this property? And this is something we're starting to raise, and I plan to send a proposal to the council in the next couple months. But once everybody gets a chance to buy the lot next to their house, and we're going to have tens of thousands of vacant parcels together, I'd like to put those properties in the hands of the block clubs and the neighborhood associations. All right? And so council and I will work this out over the next couple months, but I'll just tell you today what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is this, that we would go to each community and say, we'll lease you those vacant lots for $25 a year for 3 years. You can use them for what you want. Create a little park, you can make a community garden, you can create off-street parking. There's only one condition. For you to rent that lot, you need the approval of your block club or your neighborhood association. Okay? It is remarkable with the work the Department of Neighborhoods is doing and the district managers are doing, the city council members are doing, to see the way neighborhoods are coming back. Do you realize last year 200 new block clubs formed and registered in the city? People are starting to take control of their own blocks. Wouldn't it be something if we could say to these communities, you had that strip of land and you had a vision for a community garden, you can come in and lease that property, and instead of City Hall telling you what's there, you can decide it for yourself. How many people here are active in local neighborhood associations? Stand up. All right, thank you all very much for your service. So we've had success in many fronts. Otis Jones and Dr. Lorna Thomas and the Streetlight Authority have now putting up 1,000 street lights a week, 35,000 street lights in the last year. We are going to finish the neighborhood in this city by this June, 18 months ahead of schedule. A year ago, our EMS service was embarrassing. The slowest response time in the country, averaging 18 minutes, and if vehicles broke down, there were times you could wait an hour. People's lives were put at risk. If it hadn't been for the donations of Dan Gilbert and Roger Penske, we wouldn't even have the vehicles we had on the road. Here we are a year later. We've got twice as many ambulances in the system. We've hired 100 new EMTs. We've cut the response time from 18 minutes to 11 minutes. And when this last class of EMTs gets on the street in the next couple months, we are going to be very close to the national average of 8 minutes for 9/11 response time. So thank you to the men and women of the EMS service who have gone through the hard times. The other thing is, it's not just going to be the EMTs responding. Very shortly, the firefighters are also going to be responding, which is the way it works in most major cities. Firefighters are usually medical first responders. They get there first, give you CPR until the ambulance can get there. But in Detroit, we've always had a historic division. I give enormous credit to Jeff Pegg and the Detroit Firefighters Association, who have entered into a new contract in which the firefighters have agreed to be first responders. We've had 127 of them already trained, and the interesting thing is the plan we're implementing was actually designed by the firefighters union and brought to the city. We've got unions and management working together to make the people of this town safer. You know I'm never going to be satisfied until we have first-class bus service. And to serve the schedules we published, we got to pull 190 buses out in the morning. A year ago, we pulled out 140, and you could wait forever. Now we're in the 170s, which is you're not waiting as long, but it's certainly not the standard that I'm looking for. We've hired more drivers. We've hired more mechanics, but the fact is the equipment is so old and broken down, until we got new buses, there wasn't anything we can do. Except now, help is on the way. The federal government, and this is something where we will never be able to thank Vice President Joe Biden, who took a personal interest in these buses after I showed him what was going on, and the Treasurer and the Transportation Secretary, Anthony Fox, have awarded us the money for 80 brand new buses. The first 11 just arrived. They're going on the street this week. We'll be adding 10 a week from now through August, and by the middle of this year, for the first time in nearly 20 years in this city, we are going to show up according to the published schedule that we give you. In the meantime, we have a DDOT bus app. And if you haven't found it, download it on your smartphone, because if you're there on Gratiot and you want to know when the next bus is coming, it'll tell you exactly when it is. The day is going to come, you're not going to need it, but right now, you might want to stay inside a little bit longer. Check the bus app. We've got 29 transit officers now dedicated. The rides are safer, cameras are going in, but the true test is the riders. 7 of the last 8 weeks, our ridership has grown from the same week last year. For the first time in years, riders are coming back to the DDOT system. Of course, we need to apply that same customer service technology to all our departments. And Beth Niblock, our IT director, is about to roll something out that we call Improve Detroit. So if you lived in this city, and we've spent enough time together in living rooms to know what happens. The street light goes out. Who do I call? I think it's the lighting authority. There's an illegal dump next door. Who do I call? I think, is it the DPW? I'm not sure. The water's running in a vacant house next door. Well, I got to call the water department. You got all these different departments, and your experience in dialing them is going to be quite varied as far as the response. And we said that's nonsense. And so we're going to have a new app in the next month that's called Improve Detroit. And you're going to be able to go onto your smartphone or on your PC or your laptop if you prefer, put in your address. When the street light's out, you're going to be able to log that in. And when you do, you're going to get an email from us acknowledging your response. It's going to have a work order go directly to the lighting department and to me at the same time, which I'll be a little curious. And when they fix that light, you're going to get an email back saying the response has been addressed, okay? We are going to change the way City Hall interacts with you and gives you a way to respond. Now, of course, one place that would have been really helpful is if you could have reported your street not having been snowplowed in the last week. It was pretty interesting. The response, we had the largest one-day snowfall in 40 years. We made an effort to say we were going to get every street in the city 24 hours later, which was a pretty remarkable goal. And the crews worked through the night, and interestingly enough, 80% of the streets in the city were clear. We were doing okay by Tuesday night. Problem came Wednesday. We told everybody that if your street hadn't been plowed, call this number. Everybody called the same phone number. Some of you got answers, some of you didn't. Some people got followed up, some people didn't. It was not the right way to go. But the truth is, we're always going to need you, because when the contractors say they finish covering 2,000 miles of street, we don't have some giant helicopter in the sky saying to us they missed Asbury Park in Pennsylvania. We need you to be able to tell us. And in the future, you're not going to have to dial a phone number. You're going to be able to click on Improve Detroit. It's going to go right to the contractor. We're going to follow up, and we're going to give you the kind of service that you deserve. And most of the time, this team works very hard and doesn't get a lot of attention, but they're ready to stand up and say that they're going to deliver at this level for you. And I'd like to introduce the cabinet, the people running the city of Detroit, with our Deputy Mayor, Ike McKinnon, Chief of Staff, Alexis Wiley, our Police Chief, James Craig, Fire Commissioner, Edsel Jenkins, Chief Financial Officer, John Hill, Chief Information Officer, Beth Niblock, Corporation Counsel, Butch Hollowell, Chief Operating Officer, Gary Brown, our newest addition, Human Resources Director, Denise Starr, Human Rights Director, Portia Roberson, Neighborhoods Director, Charlie Beckham, Economic Development Director. Oh, Charlie, you brought your fan club. All right. Economic Development Director, Tom Lewan. DDOT Director, Dan Dirks. The woman who's succeeding in Lansing, Lisa Howes. Our Chief Talent Officer, Brian Barnhill. And our newest addition, the former Finance Director of the City of New York, Deputy Mayor for Economic Policy, Carol O'Claricon. and the former Undersecretary of Housing for the state of Massachusetts, and our new Housing Director, Arthur Jemerson. This is the team that is working so hard, and thank you for all you're doing. Of course, with Chief Craig, he doesn't need any introduction. Isn't he doing a great job? You know, you think about when Chief Craig came here, the morale of the department, the offices were on mandatory 12-hour shifts and were extremely frustrated. If you wanted to go into a precinct after 5 o'clock and report something, they'd lock the doors on you. People thought that this was the way a city should run. And if you look at the progress that we've made, last year we had some good things happen. Carjackings last year down 32%. And U.S. Attorney Barb McQuaid and her team have a lot to do with that, and we thank them for their support. Crime rates down. We had the fewest murders since the 1960s. The homicide clearance rate was up. The numbers are going in the right direction, but nobody here is celebrating the fact that we had 300 murders in the city of Detroit this year. We have got to change the culture of this community to recognize that every life matters. And so we're going to attack that from a few different ways. We're going to attack it from traditional law enforcement, but we're also going to attack it by providing opportunities to these young folks so that we have some alternatives. And so the first thing we're going to do yet again, and this is still hard for me to believe, but a year and a half ago, the police response time when you dialed 911 was 37 minutes. Do you remember that? You remember the one TV announcer who dialed 911 and went and took a bath in the bathtub? Remember those days? Today, with the great work by the police department and the men and women of the office, we've cut that response time to 17 minutes. We're getting close to the national average. And for serious crimes, we're getting there even faster. This year, we're going to cut it even more. We're going to put 200 more police officers on the street and get them in the cars and responding. We're doing it from the new hires in the academies, but we're also doing it with agreements with the Detroit Police Officers Association to take police officers out of jobs behind desks where they were dispatching cars or watching the fleet or doing payroll. With the agreement of the union, we're moving those officers out of their desks and putting them onto the street. And I'd like to, at this point, thank DPOA President Mark Diaz. Mark, are you here today? So Mark, you know, sometimes I question Mark's judgment. He was at a law enforcement conference at Miami Beach this morning, and he came back early to listen to this speech. But Mark, we deeply appreciate everything that the men and women of your department do. We're going to cut the response time on the east side, too, because this spring we're going to open a new 9th precinct on Conner Avenue. We're going after the repeat sex offenders. Prosecutor Kim Worthy has done an extraordinary thing in getting 11,000 rape kits tested. The evidence is now coming in. But once you get the evidence, what are we going to do with it? We have these repeat offenders who have violated women in our community, and we've got to follow up. And so in the next week, we are dedicating 6 Detroit police officers from the Sex Offenders Unit full-time to team with the prosecutors. We are going to get these repeat sex offenders. We're going to get them off the street. And then Chief Craig has a vision for more elaborate kinds of programs, a real-time crime unit. And I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we have our best team on it. And here's what he's proposing. Says, you know, we can't just do the same old things and end up with different results. But if you go around the city, at gas stations, there's all kinds of exterior cameras. Councilman Spivey has seen to that. You go to the McDonald's and many of the fast food places, there are exterior cameras. We've got them at many of the traffic lights. What would happen if somebody in police headquarters were linked up to all of those cameras to respond immediately? if somebody did a carjacking at a gas station on McNichols, and the police could immediately get a picture of the carjacker and the cars and get it out to the officers, how much of a difference would that make? Right? And so you're going to see us pursue the next generation of law enforcement. Our relationship between the police officers and the communities is extremely important to us. And there have been incidents that have happened in other cities in this country, and they're capable of happening anywhere if we're not vigilant. What Chief Craig did in starting the neighborhood police officer program by committing dedicated officers to each individual neighborhood was a good step. And this year, we're going to have those officers start spending time in the high schools to start to build a better relationship between our teenagers and the police. And the other thing that we are going to be proposing is to be one of the leaders in the United States in putting body cameras on police officers so we can see the interaction. And again, we're doing this with the cooperation of the union. We actually had 30 officers who voluntarily demonstrated this themselves last April, and Chief Craig and I sat down and talked with them, and what they said was it was the best thing they did. That when they interacted with difficult people, when they realized they were being recorded, they calmed down. I saw this. I was the prosecutor when the dashboard cameras first went in. And there were a couple of times when I prosecuted a police officer because of the evidence on the camera, but there were a whole lot more times the police officer was cleared because the person in the backseat of the car had no idea that they were being recorded and their false accusations could be disputed. And so we feel very confident about this. So in the next couple weeks, Chief Craig and I will be sending a recommendation to the Detroit Police Commission and to the Detroit City Council to consider deploying body cameras, first on a demonstration basis and then throughout the department. We think it's going to build the trust between the police and the community, and we hope the proposal will get serious consideration. But we got to give these kids some alternatives. We got to give them something to do. And so we've started our programs even before they're born. We started a program last year that's been very successful called Make Your Date, because the best thing that can happen to your child is for you to carry that baby to term. Babies that are born before 32 weeks are at much higher risk of damage to their brain, to their heart, to their lungs, to their eyes. But the Make Your Date doctors are helping these mothers get the latest care. We've had 400 expectant mothers enrolled already. We expect 1,000 next year, and thank you to Dr. Sonia Hassan and her team. But if you're an expectant mother in the city of Detroit, go to the Make Your Date website. There isn't any charge, enroll, and we want to help you get your baby to full term. We did a lot of other things. Last summer, we opened up 225 parks that had been closed in 2013. We were able to do that in part because of the ministers in this community. When I met with them, I said, what is one thing we can do for the young people? They said, you got to get these parks open. We said, we've got the money to open about 180. We need another 70. And the ministers in this town took the lead, and with the help of some of our business community, they adopted 70 of these parks. They kept them cut all summer. And any one of the ministers or businesses who adopted a park, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. But we didn't just cut the parks. We added 25 new playscapes to parks between last year and this coming year. We put in new baseball fields with the help of Jimmy Settles in the UAW Ford at Baldock Park and another at Patton. We got the Brennan Pool reopened at Rouge Park with the help of Lear and Matt Simoncini. We're going to reopen the Lipke Recreation Center at 7 Mile and Van Dyke with the help of Mitch Album and Matthew Stafford. And this spring, we're going to break ground on the Kemeny Recreation Center in Southwest Detroit with the help of Marathon Oil. And as we talk about these things, we say That's good, but what about opportunities? And we aren't in the ability, we just don't have the ability right now to deal with the management of the Detroit Public Schools. But it doesn't mean we can't be a good partner. I want to create tracks for our high school students for jobs to the city. And I'm very pleased to say that this fall, Commissioner Edsel Jenkins is opening an academy that will allow students who are Detroit Public School high school students to go to EMS classes and firefighter classes, so when they graduate from high school, they've got their EMT, they got their firefighter certification, so we can help people from this city work for this city. And Chief Craig and his team are working on the same program for our police officers. And as you hear all of this, you say, where's the money coming from? I haven't talked about money. It's different in the city of Detroit. You know, every place I've been, we just balance the budget. But let me tell you this. Certainly we're in a much better position because of Kevin Orr and the bankruptcy and getting rid of the debt, but we still have to run a very tight budget every single week in order to stay on track. And we are now 7 months through the year, and I'm very proud to say we are running below expenses, above revenue, and we are going to finish this year with a balanced budget for the first time since 2002. We still report to a Financial Review Commission that has every right to review our finances. But the law says that if we balance our budget and pay our bills for 3 straight years, we're out from under the control period and we've returned self-determination to the city of Detroit, and that's the goal of every one of us up here. We're also making progress on a regional level, and I want to thank my colleagues, Brooks Patterson from Oakland County, Mark Hackle from Macomb County, Warren Evans from Wayne County for being here. We are going to stay with this until we get this water agreement done so we can fix the water in this region of the city of Detroit, and I'm hoping you'll work with us soon to reopen the smart buses in the city of Detroit and improve the bus service to Detroiters. So, as we recover, here's the question. Can we build our recovery on a principle of economic inclusion? What does the recovery of the city mean if the folks who have been here aren't a part of it? And so we talked about some things today, Detroiters being trained for EMT jobs, people being able to get 0% loans to fix up their houses, foreclosure assistance to keep the house. But what does it mean? Inclusion doesn't mean that no person ever loses a lease, because that's not the way the property laws work in this country. But what inclusion means is that we build a city that there are enough places for people that there is a spot for them. And so I'm not interested in talking about inclusion. I'm interested in doing it. And so what have we done? We start with housing. You can see the redevelopment of downtown and midtown. Well, who is it for? I'm very pleased to say that with the assistance of the city, we've got affordable housing units going in Cass Plaza and Charlotte Apartments, 100% affordable housing. The 129 units at the Strathmore, 2 blocks from the DMC, 40% are being reserved for affordable housing. In Orleans Landing, next to the Renaissance Center, 20% are being reserved for affordable housing. In the new development at the old Tiger Stadium site at Michigan in Trouble, 20% being held for affordable housing, and I'm talking to our friends from the Illich organization that in the 50-block District Detroit development around the hockey arena, they make a commitment overall that entire neighborhood, a minimum of 20% is set aside for affordable housing. We are going to make sure as these neighborhoods grow, everybody is welcome, because that's what a city is. If you move into a city, you want to be in a densely populated area with all types of people interacting. That's what a city is all about, and we're going to make sure that's the kind of city that we're getting. Inclusion means that you have the ability to get the skills for the jobs that are opening. And I'm going to encourage you again to go to the Detroit Opportunities website, where there's an enormous number of programs. But Pam Moore in DESC in the last year has trained 3,000 people for new jobs in the city of Detroit. In one plant alone, DMS, run by Andra Rush over at Southfield in 96, they make the interiors of Ford automobile products, the dashboards and the like. 900 people have been hired in good-paying jobs with benefits in that one program. We've got enormous opportunity in the skilled trades. For as long as I've known her, Brenda Jones has headed the Skilled Trade Task Force and has demanded that people of color be allowed the opportunity to participate in the trades. And now we're starting to see the results. We're doing good things like demanding that the hockey arena use 51% of the workers from the city of Detroit. And we're doing the same thing in a half a dozen other initiatives. We want these jobs to go to Detroiters, but if you need to build a building and you don't have plumbers or you don't have electricians from Detroit, what are you going to do? And so we are now getting monthly reports from our skilled trades. And I saw this month's report something that is pretty remarkable. Carlo Castiglione, the president of the Plumbers Union, has got an apprentice class going for the new employees being trained as plumbers. The class of 40, 20 of them are residents of the city of Detroit. In fact, we're seeing men and women of color in all the units. Today, there are 43 carpenter apprentices from Detroit, 49 electricians, 44 bricklayers. We are starting to see opportunities across the board, and these are good jobs. These are jobs that once you get through your apprenticeship, you can make $60,000, $80,000, even $100,000 a year. These are good jobs, and they're jobs that we can do. So if you go to the Detroit Opportunities website, you'll see the training links, and you'll see the people who are from this community who are doing the same thing. Of course, it helps a lot if we can get the jobs located nearby. And so Tom Lawand and the Economic Development team is doing a great job, and I've never been more pleased than we broke ground a month ago on the Lightweight Metal Manufacturing Institute, $150 million investment in Corktown in the latest manufacturing of lightweight metals is going to go to cars and ships and boats. And the young men and women that are going to work there are going to be trained at Focus Hope and going to work in the city of Detroit. We want to bring jobs nearby, but inclusion also means that you can get to the job. And I'm confident Dan Dirks is going to get DDOT where it needs to be. But we all know the other biggest obstacle. And I have to tell you, right? Biggest problem in the city. Car insurance, right? It is unbelievable. Detroiters are paying twice as much as suburbanites. And so I have spent, somebody's got a worse deal than that. Mine doubled. And so the city charter requires that before we start our own insurance company, we do an actuarial analysis to prove that we can do it and make money. And in December, the City Council approved a contract for Pinnacle Actuaries to go in, and that analysis has started. But this is going to be a very tough problem. I've spent a huge amount of time at it, and I was really hopeful that we could start our own insurance company without any help from Lansing and go and undercut the market. But the farther we dig into this, the more that we find to get these rates down, we're going to need some help. You can imagine how enthused I am about taking on the insurance industry in that state legislature. But we're going to find a way to do it. And so we are going through a whole number of scenarios, and we're going to have a plan in the first half of this year that's going to be actuarially sound. And when we have it, I can promise you I am going to fight every single day until we finally fix this injustice and give people in this town a fair rate for their cars. So inclusion also means if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start your own business, you can get a start. And Comerica has run this Hatch program, which is a great program. One winner a year gets $50,000 and it attracts all kinds of attention. And we said, well, that's great, but one company or $50,000 isn't going to get it done. And so I'm pleased to say that a combination of federal money and foundation money, Rod Miller and Augustella and DEGC are going to shortly be announcing the program that we're calling Motor City Match, where we're going to have $500,000 every single quarter available for people who want to start up their businesses. It means that if you come in with a plan, you might be looking at a $50,000 or $100,000 grant, and if you get rejected in the third quarter of 2015, you can fix it and come back in the first quarter of 16. It means that if you're going to Wayne County Community College or Wayne State, you can pick up classes to get ready for this because you know it's going to be there every single quarter for the next 5 years. We are not going to succeed until the young people growing up in this city believe that they don't have to work for somebody else, that it's possible for them to start their own company and be their own boss. And I'm going to tell you, you can find the details of Motor City Match on the Detroit Opportunities webpage. And also on there is another tremendous partner, and that's J.P. Morgan Chase, who came in here last year and put up $100 million, most of it in loans for businesses to expand. And just last week, we saw them make a $2.5 million loan to Global Titanium, a business at 7 Mile and Mount Elliott. It's going to add 30 more jobs. They are making those kinds of loans across the city, and we owe them an enormous debt of gratitude because as our companies get started, we want them to be able to continue to grow. Because in my mind, here's what inclusion is all about. I believe one thing with my heart, that talent in this world is distributed equally, no matter what community, no matter where you are. What isn't distributed equally is opportunity. Right? And if I ever had any doubt about that, I had my most powerful day as mayor, one day last February, when I was giving a speech at the UAW Ford, and my friend Jimmy Settles came over and he said, I got this group I kind of sponsor. It's the local chess club. And I said, that's nice. And why don't you come say hi to them? And I did. And of course, some of these young kids said to me, how about you come play us? I said, yeah, right, kids. I went back and Jimmy says, it would be really good if they could play the mayor. They get a kick out of it. I said, I was a serious chess player in high school. I played competitively. That really isn't right. But Jimmy says, oh, come on, do it. So, okay. So I walk in, and there's this little tiny girl, 8 years old, sitting at the table. And somehow Jimmy's managed to have a couple of the TV cameras there. And we start the game, and I'm being nice, and we're about 6 moves in, and she takes my bishop. And, of course, her friends start whooping and hollering. Now the guys in the TV cameras are excited. I look down at her, and she's staring straight at the board. I said, this kid is thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. That's exceptional for anybody, but it's extraordinary for an 8-year-old. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose a chess match in front of the TV cameras. So I can't help myself. I said, this isn't going to happen. And we went on for the next 45 minutes in the most intense match. It went back and forth. I was losing at the end, and I was fortunate to get out with a draw. At which point, my friend Jimmy Settle says, Mike, maybe I should have mentioned to you before we started that Sharice Woods is the 8-year-old Michigan State chess champion. Now, Sharice, stand up and wave. All right. Okay. Now wait, the story gets better. So it turns out that Sharice and her 3rd grade classmates at a Detroit public school, Chrysler Elementary, have won the elementary school state championship. All right? And in May, they went down to Dallas to compete for the national championship against the most elite private schools in America, sending their chess teams to Dallas. And the team that won the national championship was a public school from Detroit, Charisse and those at Chrysler Elementary. And so please let me read each of their names because they deserve it. Maxwell Motley, Solomon Foster, Eric Hobson, Nicholas Burton, Travis Turner, Miles DeYoung, Camille Bridges, Blake Fields, Maya Wiedemann and Kelsey Hall, and their coaches Kevin Feit and Dominic Johnson. Thank you for bringing a national championship here to Detroit. So when I talk about economic inclusion, I'm not talking about anybody giving anything to anyone. You want these new job skills, you're going to have to work for them. You want this money to start a business, you're going to have to compete for it. But I'll tell you what economic inclusion means to me. It means that these bright, brilliant, hardworking 8- and 9-year-olds growing up in the city of Detroit have every great a chance to succeed in their life as children growing up in Ann Arbor or Farmington or Grosse Pointe. And when we have achieved that, Detroit really will be a great city again. Thank you very much and good night.